Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 20 of the Hardwood Hoops podcast. I'm joined by the head of the Jordan Clarkson fan club, Mr. Ben Jones.
Yeah, we're growing in numbers, but we're getting there. How are you, Liam?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Good, thanks. Enjoying playoff basketball. What about you, buddy?
Yeah, very good. It's early for a Sunday, but I've got a nice cup of tea and I'm ready to talk hoops.
Definitely, yeah. We're recording this before Sunday's games, very, very much before, early in the morning. But yeah, we're excited, and we had some cool games to talk about from last night, Ben. But why don't we go into a bit of news first?
Yes.
First bit of news involves our favourite team. The Houston Rockets won a crazy Game 7 against OKC. We spoke about all the other series enders last time, so we thought we'd give this one a few minutes. What were your thoughts on the game and the final sequence of this one?
Classic fourth quarter James Harden, or Game 7 James Harden did not really show up offensively. The thing that does make me laugh is because of that one block at the end, everybody's like, oh my God, he plays defense. He's one of the best defenders in the world now. Like, well, Lou Dort scored 30 on him. I mean, I love Dort, but come on. It's Lou Dort, isn't it?
I love Lou Dort. My wife was getting very annoyed because I watched the game the day after, and well, basically I just kept saying, look at this highlight, look, Lou Dort," and she was like, "Oh my God, you said Lou Dort's name about 100 times or something." And he also won me my daily fantasy league that we enter because he scored 30 and got like 9 rebounds. So shout out to Lou Dort for that one.
Big Lou Dort. Yeah, it was entertaining. Just some interesting decisions from OKC getting towards crunch time this game compared to others where I thought, what are you doing? Why have you done that? I don't know if you've seen on the Twitter feed as well that some expert analysis from Channing Frye did make me laugh. It's very funny, but it's very true. There's like huge gaps under the basket, and they're playing Steven Adams up in the sort of on the elbow, and he's like, well, just put him under the basket. He's 10 times higher than any other player on that court, and he's open.
Yeah, he wasn't sealing anyone off, was he? But you could tell probably it was just part of the game plan, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I did notice there was a lot of early shots in the shot clock. Like OKC would get a good stop or a good rebound, and then normally they're quite like forceful in the way they play, aren't they? And they just make you play their way. So if they want to take 20 seconds off and run like higher action pick and roll, they will. But all of a sudden, they're just getting the ball run down the court, one pass to someone or one dribble, and someone was just jacking up a shot that they shouldn't be taking. And it got quite funny at the end because obviously me and you love Chris Paul, and we're talking about how he basically leads this team and how they're good in crunch time. But even he himself had a really, really poor last 5 minutes, didn't
he? Yeah, he disappeared. He didn't. I think, I don't know. I feel like maybe they looked a little bit gassed toward the end there. Yeah, he just didn't seem to want it like he's wanted every other game in this series in that fourth quarter. So, yeah, I feel for OKC because I think they've had almost like a fairy tale season, and if they had done that, that would have topped it off massively.
Yeah, even losing the next round, you just think winning a game 7, some of the young players and the fans could have just been, like, obviously you always want to win a championship, but that'd have been the icing on the cake, I think, when you look at the expectations for this team.
Yeah.
But many people said before, Chris Paul's had a bit of a dodgy record in his past with Game 7s. He's not dissimilar to James Harden in terms of his playoff record in Game 6s and 7s. And maybe we thought this year would be different, but he himself didn't quite shine as much as he'd want in the fourth. Did you see the Chris Paul Harden double flop or not?
No, I haven't seen that one.
There was like 2 minutes to go or something. Harden dribbles up the court. He like lightly touches Chris Paul. Chris Paul flops backwards. But as James Harden's obviously dribbling, he's then annoyed at the ref, so he kind of takes like half a second off the ball. So someone else steals the ball, like Schroeder, I think, stole the ball. And then he gave the ball straight back to Chris Paul. Chris Paul drives in the lane, runs into James Harden. He flops back. The refs like, no, boys, we've seen this before. We are not calling it. And they just basically kept falling over like 3 or 4 times in the last 4 minutes of the game. And the refs were like, nah. If anyone else got fouled, they were giving it. But if Chris Paul or Harden were like flopping back, they were like, nope, we're not giving it. We're not giving it. And that did make me laugh.
So good. I've read a lot on the refs not calling some of the flops just to keep the game flowing, which is fine because stuff like that you can sort of retrospectively find someone for flopping later and let the game play on. So I quite like that from the refs because I know they've made some real dodgy calls so far.
Yeah, they have. I'm sure we'll go on to talk about some later, but I found the final sequence in this game crazy. Obviously, you spoke about it before with that block by Lou Dort. But then we had an off-the-ball foul that the refs gave with 10 seconds to go, which they never do.
Yeah.
Which then Gallinari obviously missed a technical free throw, which is
crazy because his free throw percentage is incredible as well.
Yeah, 90% or 89 or something, I read, which is also extremely high, especially for a big. But then when you look back at it and Ludor gets blocked, Chris Paul is calling timeout before, and then we thought, oh great, they're going to get a timeout. But then the refs come back around and say, oh no, Lou Dort's foot was off the line when he jumped back in bounds, and we were like, oh, we just spent all this time reviewing it and had no idea what we were reviewing it for. And then it ended up being rocket ball anyway, so it was almost pointless. And then they added another 2 seconds back on the clock, but you can see on the replay there was only 1 second, and they've just added 2, and like almost to keep the game going. And if I was a Houston fan, I'd been absolutely livid with that because there was no way there was 3.5 seconds left. But they managed to hold on, and thankfully in this game the refs weren't the main talking point, which was good.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that led the Rockets to going on to play the Lakers, which we'll talk about later. Next bit of news. Bit of a shock, Ben. I sent you a screenshot from Woj the other day about Mr. Steve Nash getting a 4-year deal to coach the Brooklyn Nets. Allegedly, this deal was done in March, which means you were like, fair play for an NBA team for not getting a leak. Like, we already tend to know everything that happens in the NBA before it happens, don't we? But not with this case.
It's incredible if that is true. They've managed to keep this under wraps up to this point with everything going on and being on the big stage in the bubble. Fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing Steve Nash on the sidelines. I think he could be really good for bringing on those young players they've got, especially the guards. And I imagine he's got a lot to bring to the forwards and the bigs as well after, playing with some real talent. I'd be interested to see what the rest of his coaching team looks like and how he sets up. And I'm excited about what he's going to bring to the table. I think this is a odd but interesting signing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that they were never ever going to get Greg Popovich, but he would probably be the best choice. But if you look past him and you look past anyone that's already employed, you have to pay a lot of money or send draft picks to get. When you look at the hiring, I think Nash is probably the best option. He's probably expensive, though. Obviously, I haven't seen those details come out. He will be expensive, I imagine, just because of how much he earned playing as a player. So to get someone to come out of retirement to coach, which is quite stressful, you'd probably have to pay them a wedge.
Yeah.
But he's got good links with Kyrie. He's coached him before in the off-season and helped teach him. Obviously, he was with KD at Golden State when he was a shooting coach for the Warriors. And all the Warriors players loved him. And apparently he was heavily into their offensive game plan. Like him and Steve Kerr did a lot of that together. Obviously, with Steve Kerr having the final say because it's his team, but Steve Nash obviously trying to help teach that. And he used to play with the Nets GM as well, so they've been friends since second year in the league, I think. When they were, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was a Phoenix, or it might have been a summer camp. I read, and they were friends ever since then. So he obviously knows a few people in the organisation, which I think helps. And I agree with you that I think he'll be able to teach everyone quite a lot, to be honest, and especially the guards. And obviously they've got Kyrie that maybe could take his game up another notch. But obviously players like Caris LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie, they're quite young point guards or shooting guards in their own right. So I think he can really help develop their career.
Yeah, in terms of all, great signing. I just hope it works out because a lot of the time, especially ex-players, their first like 1 or 2 places coaching can sometimes be a bit trial and error and a bit testing and not necessarily successful. So wish him all the best. Yeah,
definitely. I think there's a bit of a stigma around that, isn't there, around the league, that you're either really good or really bad if you're an ex-player in your first year. Because obviously we've had some people get sacked within the first 8 months.
Yeah.
But then we've had People like Steve Kerr and Ty Lue win championships with their first job, so it's kind of hit or miss. What are your thoughts on the 4-year deal? That's shows quite a lot of confidence to give someone that much time who's never coached before.
I think he's obviously come in with a really solid plan, and the Nets want consistency for the next 4 years because I think that's their window to win a championship. Hitting KD and Kyrie in their sort of primes and kicking on from there. It's the same across any sport though. Every team goes out with a good intention to have a manager for 4 years, because if you're a manager, you're going to have a long-term plan, because you can't make the changes you want in the first year, realistically. It's just, does the franchise give him that 4-year chance? After 6 months, if he's not getting the results that they want, are they going to fire him, or are they going to let him see out his plan? You see it a lot in Premier League football. A manager comes in, signs a 3-4 year deal, and after 6 months they're fired, and you think, well, he's not really had a chance to do.
Yeah,
he can implement his game plan, but not with the players he wants. So it's not going to quite work. So I hope they do give him the chance.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes those longer contracts as well are just clever moves by the agents, because we all know that not every sport, but most sports owners can be a bit quick with the fire trigger, can't they?
Yes.
But if you get someone on a 4-year deal, it doesn't matter. If you get sacked after 1 year, you're still getting paid for 4 years. So it's a bit of extra security as well for the client. But yeah, just a final add-on there. I forgot to mention, obviously, Jack Vaughan, who's coached them in the bubble. He's staying on as the head assistant, and he's known as a bit of a defensive expert. And obviously, the players really responded to him, because how many times did me and you say that we were surprised by a Nets result positively in the bubble? It was nearly every episode. So it's quite good, I think, for Steve Nash and the players, especially the young players that aren't Kyrie and KD, to get Jack Vaughan to stay on the coaching staff. I think that was a good addition.
Yeah, really good.
Cool. All right. Well, I think they're going to be dangerous next year. And if we're honest, he's probably got a 2-year window, hasn't he, really, where he wants to get to a finals. That would be my estimation of what they'd want with those two players.
Yeah, I think that's really realistic as well.
Yeah, I think so, yeah, especially if they're clever with the off-season, but we will wait and see. Last bits of news, a couple of awards, Ben, which they're doing sporadically every few days, which I find a lot more fun than the 3-hour award show they do normally. So Ja Morant won Rookie of the Year award. That was kind of expected. We both said the odds were like heavily weighted in his favour. But thankfully, Kendrick Nunn did come second, which is something that me and you mentioned that should probably happen. But we've got to talk about the fact that Zion got 1 vote for Rookie of the Year when he played 19 games. Like, who has not voted Ja Morant out of that group? It's got to be someone that's close to Zion or the Pelicans or his agent.
Pelicans related. Definitely. There's no other explanation for that, because Zion is a good player, but 19 games and not done the things that Ja has done. It's just
impossible with 19 games, isn't it? I think when I saw it that he didn't get 100 votes, I kind of thought, I thought Kendrick Nunn might have got a vote from someone, because I think he's had, especially the first 2 months, he was pretty much neck and neck with Ja Morant. And then when I realised it was no first place votes for Nunn and one was for Zion, I was like, that's just a popularity vote from someone, because you can't compare 19 games. I think I think he played 61. I think Ja Morant, or 51. So yeah, nuts. But fair play to him. I don't think we were surprised at all by the result.
No, it's fitting, deserved, and I can't wait to see what he does in his second year.
Yeah, it fits the team as well, because they were a bit of a Cinderella story. And the other award we heard about was the Sixth Man of the Year award. This one's a bit more controversial, obviously won by Mr. Montrezl Harrell, my favourite person after the Mavs series. So question 1 is, do you think he should have won it? And question 2, can 2 teammates be up for the Sixth Man of the Year award when technically you both can't be 6 men?
No, I don't think they should have both been up for it. Like you said, 6th man for a reason. Which one is it? They could have even gone to the Clippers and been like, okay, we want to put one of these two up. Which one would you say is your sixth man? I
Yeah,
think they would have put Montrez forward, seeing as Lou
yeah,
has
I
done it
agree.
every single year. Um, it's nice to see someone different win it, I guess. But
Yeah, it is because Lou Will's won a lot, and before that, Jamal Crawford had won a lot, hadn't he?
yeah, um, I just think it's come at a tricky time when people aren't enjoying the Clippers. So
Yeah, true.
there's a
Very
massive
true.
sort of lull, I think, in the fact that Montrez has won it because he, he is a good sixth man. The things he does, especially regular season, he does well. He brings lots of energy. He rebounds. He plays well defensively. He contributes offensively. But
He does have the six man sort of mindset, doesn't he? And like
yeah,
spirit coming off the bench. To be fair, whereas Lou Will does come across more like a starter, the way he plays.
yeah, exactly. So at the two of them, it makes sense. I think it's just no one cares about the Clippers at the moment.
It was nice that Lou Will gave him the award. I think that was a nice touch because obviously
Yeah,
Lou
really
Will's
good.
kind of known as the NBA six man, isn't he? Obviously, even Drake wrote a song called Six, which is basically about Lou Will being the six man. So it's quite nice for them to do that. And also shout out to Montrez, even though basketball wise, I'm not his biggest fan. He had Breonna Taylor's name written across his shoes, so when he posted the award, he put her name next to either side of the award. So obviously that's just
Nice.
more for the family, more awareness, because that picture was going to get shown everywhere, like
Yeah,
retweeted on all the sports networks, on all the TV stations in America, and then he put his shoes up there with her name on in front of him to almost like show how much she means. So that was quite a nice touch. But in terms of basketball wise, I think Schroeder was the favourite going into it, just about, or maybe they were nearly neck and neck. I had him as my probably six man. What are your thoughts on Harrell versus Schroeder? Do you think the right person won, or do you think it's just a bit of a toss up at that point?
yeah. I think it is a bit of a toss-up. I think it's helped the Clippers that they've put two names forward because even I think subconsciously you're like more drawn to them. You see Lou Williams from the Clippers and you think, oh yeah, classic sixth man, and then you see that Montrez is there as well, and you start to think, oh, well, Lou's had so much, I might just swing my vote for Montrez instead, and then you sort of forget that Schroeder's up for it as well, and
Hmm.
he's had a great season with OKC. I just maybe it's he hasn't had as much media attention as the Clippers have been getting. I feel like Montrezl Harrell's maybe a name that's been said more this season than Dennis Schroeder, so that has worked in his favour. Um, so hopefully, maybe next year Schroeder can keep kicking on and yeah, go for it again perhaps, or because he's definitely super talented and when locked in plays incredibly well. So fingers crossed someone can knock those Clippers boys off the six man award.
um, yeah, I think I would agree with that. He's got a good chance of going for it next year, especially if Chris Paul stays around. Because then we know Schroeder's going to be that first name off the bench pretty much every night.
Yeah.
I think he did have a great season. Like I think some of these awards are very much narrative based, aren't they? And it's kind of what did you want to vote for? Did you want to vote for the sixth man for the team that should have never been in the playoffs that snuck into the playoffs, or do you want to vote for the sixth man for a team that has a lot of injuries and has the most points off the bench? Do you know what I mean? It's a good stat
Yeah.
to say, oh yeah, Harrell and Lou Will are the highest bench scoring unit ever. We put them both up. So I think it's kind of what you want to vote for. But yeah, fair enough to Montrez for what he did as well after. That was very good. He's also one of the younger people to win a six man, which is quite cool for him. But yeah, cool. Right, on to the game. So we'll start with the West, as we're talking about the Clippers already. After last night's games, mate, we have Clippers 1, Nuggets 1. The Clippers took a one-game lead. The Nuggets managed to claw back in game 2. What are your thoughts on the first two games? And are you kind of surprised already that it's 1-1? Because I know a lot of people saw the Clippers going 2 up in this series.
Not overly surprised because the Nuggets did have this in their locker if they wanted it. Jokic played very well, and Jamal Murray, everybody else contributed were hitting shots. And on the opposite end of it, the Clippers had quite a quiet night offensively in comparison. We were talking about it before we started recording. This is the worst shooting Kawhi's had since the playoffs started. So I'm not worried about the Clippers at all. I think next game Kawhi will come back, his percentages will be up, and they'll probably walk the next game as well. I think that they need to look at it, like I said before, when Paul George wasn't playing well. If one of those two isn't playing well offensively, they need to lock in better defensively and concentrate on that end, and let whoever's got the hot hand that night take over, instead of keep trying to force it up. In my opinion, that would suit them better than keep putting shots up, because they've got scorers, and if they shut down, use all their time and energy to shut someone down, they'll shut someone down. But I'm not worried about the Clippers. I think they storm back and win this series quite comfortably. Jokic has got to play like he did last night every game, which he's not going to, and they've got to hit shots at a high percentage every game, which I don't think they're going to. So, yeah, Clippers are still taking this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was very surprised to see Kawhi only getting 13 points as well when he played the number of minutes he did. But yeah, Mr. Zubac was the second highest scorer in the game for the Clippers. So that kind of says everything you need to know when you've got players like Lou Will and Kawhi Leonard behind Paul George. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Jokic had an insane game. Jamal Murray had a much better game too. I think game one was a little bit falsified, and maybe the Clippers got a little bit overconfident, because I think you could see the Nuggets were just emotionally drained. They've had an absolute crazy series, haven't they, before? Whereas the Clippers had like 5 days of rest, I think. Or 4 days rest, maybe. So I just think the teams are in very different positions mentally, and I think maybe the Clippers came into game 2 a bit overconfident. How many times on the podcast have me and you said that if Jamal Murray and Jokic have their 2-man game going and they both play well, the Nuggets tend to win. They don't always win. Obviously, against a team like Clippers, it'd be hard, but they basically scored the same points last night, didn't they? 26 and 27, I think it was.
Yeah, Jokic 18 rebounds as well.
Yeah, when you're getting that and you're getting Jamal Murray getting over 5 assists, sometimes he's known when he goes off, which we know he can, he does kind of a lot of ISO ball, but he got 6 assists as well. I think Jokic got 4 or 5. So the 2-man game was working really well. When I look at it, I can't remember what we said in the predictions, if I said Clippers in 6 or in 5. But yeah, after last night, I'm more encouraged that it'll be a 6-game series, which is good, because the longer the games go, the more entertaining it is for us fans.
Yeah, I think I was torn between sweep and 4-1. I probably said sweep. So
I think we said 4-1 and sweep, yeah. But the Nuggets have got that game now, so I think it'll give them a bit of confidence. Game 3 is obviously the crucial one. If the Nuggets can steal one there, then we could be in for a really deep series, just because we know they're not going to lie down. They're a hard-working team, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The biggest battle the Clippers have is with themselves and what mentality they go into a game with. And I think you're completely right. They came into this thinking last game was easy, we'll do the same again, and had a bit of a shock.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think Kawhi has that mindset. I think he's probably one of the only players on that team, apart from maybe Pat Bev, that's got that championship mindset. But when you're having an off night and shooting 23, I think it was, %, that doesn't happen from Kawhi. And if he's going to shoot that and no one else is going to go off, you're really going to struggle to win the game, because obviously he plays 40 minutes and he touches the ball more than anyone. So just a bad game from him. Cool. The other series in the West, we have the Lakers versus the Rockets. The Rockets won game 1, Ben, and we have game 2 late this evening as well. So before we obviously record before the game, what are your thoughts on game 1? And what do you want to see happen in game 2, or what do you think will happen in game 2 to try and change the series around?
It felt like a bit of a classic LeBron feel-out game. I say he had a bit of a quiet night. He still got 20 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 huge blocks, and a massive dunk. But nice to see Rondo back, although I don't know.
Is it nice to see him back?
I don't know. Yeah, I think they need to.
He wasn't good.
No, they need to go back to Caruso rather than Rondo. They need to switch those minutes round and commit to him because he's been playing so well defensively, and he is going to be getting out on those shooters a lot better than Rondo ever will. I still maintain if the Lakers want to win a championship, LeBron and AD need to be scoring 25 to 30 plus a night with contributions from everybody else. I think without that, they might struggle. Houston came out hot. We thought James Harden would come back and have a good first game, which he did. So it's just how the Lakers adjust now. I think they will. I think they'll come back and get this next game tonight and make a bit of a series of it. So it'd be very interesting tonight to see what adjustments are made from both sides. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think it seemed a little bit of a feel-out game, but everyone says, "Oh, feel-out game," but he still scored 20, he still did this. But I think you're right. I think he runs the whole game overall. Weirdly so, it seems almost like AD's kind of taken on his mindset as well. I don't know if you noticed that, but every game where LeBron's having a bit of a feel-out game, you can see AD almost copying him and like slowly getting into the game and maybe trying off different things that he wouldn't necessarily try in terms of when he's going to pass and when he's not going to pass. Whereas if it was a game 7, AD is going to drive to the basket, he's going to take that shot. But sometimes he was doing like passing back to Rondo, maybe when he wouldn't out of the post, trying to reset when you think you've already got post position.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a bit of a feel-out game for everyone. Obviously, Russell Westbrook as well was really, really good, which the Rockets need. Similar to the Lakers in terms of their stars, the Rockets obviously need those two guys to score heavily to beat any team. But obviously, we know Westbrook does the other stuff as well. He gets a lot of blocks for a guard. He gets loads of rebounds for a guard. And if they don't have that, they're going to struggle on the offensive end. So I think that was quite important. And I was just quite impressed with the Rockets' D, to be honest. I thought they did well the whole night in terms of switching and guarding LeBron James in the post especially. I don't know what you thought about their defense, but I thought it was a lot better than I expected against this big Lakers team.
Yeah, no, it looked good for this first game, and their shooting percentages across the board, apart from PJ Tucker, were good. I mean, 42% for Westbrook's very good for him.
Eric Gordon was good as well.
Yeah, really, really good. 50% he was, and it's just, I think the Lakers need to play harder and really push that size advantage on the offensive end, make their defense collapse on the inside, and then kick out to whichever shooter might be hot that night. They just need to be bigger inside and use that advantage and keep getting out to those shooters on the defensive end and see how they go from there. I think that'll be the main thing they do in this next game. And there's also that bit of luck involved as well. Are Houston going to keep these shooting percentages up? It's difficult to tell when you are a 3-point shooting team. Your team's success varies from one night to the next a lot of the time. They're just lucky that they have someone like James Harden who is unworldly consistent from 3, generally.
Yeah, definitely. I think such a high variance shot that the old adage of live by the 3, die by the 3 definitely applies to them. I kind of agree with you though. I think the Lakers will probably take game 2 in a bit more of a slug. But if the Rockets can steal game 2 just with high percentage shooting again, because we know how many threes they take, that they can score a hell of a lot of points, then that could be a real big moment for the Lakers to watch out, because we know then they've got to win 4 of the next 6. Yeah. And in 6 games, the Rockets are going to have at least one more crazy 3-point shooting night. That's just the way percentages work with what they shoot from 3.
Yeah.
So I think it's a crucial game for the Lakers in game 2. And my last note, I got 2 more notes I written down about this game. One was just said, Rondo, awful. So I think that says a lot about it. I just think he gets a lot of praise for being good at assisting, but when you really watch him, isn't it just hold on to the ball for 14, 16 seconds and then pass to someone and they have to shoot, and if they score, then he gets an assist, and he hasn't really done a lot. And how many times have me and you said that's just not the Lakers? If you're not passing to AD or LeBron, whoever it is probably not going to be a very consistent shooter. And they're normally only consistent when AD and LeBron do insane things and create them open shots. But if you're just throwing them the ball with 5 seconds to go on a shot clock and they're kind of guarded on the perimeter, you're just like, what are you doing? So I agree with you about Caruso. And I also wrote down that I'm breaking my Rockets hatred, as people have seen on Twitter, and lying down my support for my new favourite player for a week, James Harden, to try and beat the Lakers. So yeah, bit of breaking news for you there.
Look at that. Didn't see that coming.
I'm going to cheer every flop, every foul, and every air ball step back free. I'm just going to give him my full support.
You flop, James.
Right, moving on from the West, we're going to the East now, and obviously those games are slightly further ahead because the NBA kind of wanted to start round 2 as soon as possible to try and limit how long the players are going to be waiting around for. So we have 3 games in one series, 4 in the other. So we'll start with the Raptors-Celtics. After last night, Ben, that game got tied up at 2-2. I was very shocked because I did see the Celtics winning 1 of game 3 or 4. I didn't think it would ever be a sweep, but I really did think they'd get it to 3-1, but they just couldn't score in game 4. And now we've got the series tied up at 2-2, and we could see 7 games like me and you predicted.
You love to see it. It's great. Pascal stepped up, getting 23 points this game when he's been scoring in the teens so far, and Kyle Lowry has just been, this game and last game in particular, has been a rock for the Raptors. I think they're just slowly, they're sort of feeling out the Boston Celtics and then warming into the games, it seems. I think Boston will definitely come back next game and really make them work. But we said it from the start, it's going to be a hell of a series, and it's not disappointing so far.
No, definitely. And the end of game 3, Ben, was absolutely crazy. Obviously, we had Kemba Walker with basically 1.5 seconds, dropping off a bounce pass to Daniel Tice, who dunked it with 0.5 seconds. And when I saw that, I thought, that's it. 3-0, game over. I know the guys over on the No Dunks podcast, a couple of them are Canadian, and they basically said the same thing. They were like, that's it. It's over. The series is probably over because no one's ever come back from 3-0 down, which we'll go and talk about a bit more in a minute. But all of a sudden, British OG Anunoby with a huge 3 and then most laid-back celebration I've ever seen after.
Yeah, just walk off.
Super chilled. And afterwards, when they asked about him, he just said, well, I don't take shots to miss them. So, yeah, I thought it was going in. And I was like, okay, fair enough.
What an explanation.
Yeah, I was like, your 3-point shooting percentage might beg to differ, but...
that was a hell of a shot, hell of a pass over Taco 4. That No Dunks podcast, they made a really good point, which was, does Kyle Lowry get that pass off in a normal arena because he takes a step back to get it over Taco, and usually there'd be people sat there.
Depends how ruthless you are. If you don't mind standing back and knocking someone's beer over and just chucking it, then maybe. But I've heard him say that how much he'd be getting shouted and screamed at on the sideline there. Yeah, that's true. You're not going to have the same. He could still have done it. We'll never know, obviously, but I think it's a very different level of pressure in terms of the pass. And he also passed it right into his shooting pocket, so he didn't have to waste any time. And I think insane. even OG putting that shot up as well is going to be hard because he's right on the end line there. And obviously, you're going to have people stood up behind him as well, screaming as he takes the shots, which could put him off for even, a split tenth of a second could make a difference. Because I think the rule is if it's 0.3 seconds on the shot clock, obviously you can't get a shot off. You have to just get a tip in. And so they had just about had 0.5. So any split second loss is crucial.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to be biased. Not as good as the Luka one for me, but hell of a moment. And I think if you're a Raptors fan, it rivals any. Before game where they won it last year, it rivals any playoff moment you've had in a while. Because if you lose that, your defending champs are probably going to go home.
Yeah, it was just an injection of energy that the Raptors needed at that point in time. Without that shot, I don't think they win this game. I really think it's a momentum thing. This game 4 win.
Yeah, it seemed to be, didn't it? Celtics seemed down on their attitude, the way they played, and obviously the Raptors were just clawing all game.
Yeah, and that's the way this Raptors team is going to win. They're gonna battle, they're gonna claw, they're gonna scrap, they're gonna fight, and everybody in their rotation's got to buy into that and get stuck in. And the nights where they don't, they get the losses.
Yeah, and I think you could see in game 4 they looked better defensively as well. Whether that's just pure effort in terms of rotations, or if they've got how many times we said they've got probably the best coach in the league currently, or maybe if you take Pop out of it, definitely the best coach in the league. And is it him working out the rotations better, obviously in their meetings and their defensive scheme setups, or is it hard work? It's probably a little bit of both, if we're honest. But I don't know if you. Oh yeah, you said you watched the game. Nick Nurse and his coaching team had the worst set of polos I've ever seen on the bench in an NBA game. Look, they were out on a golf tour. Yeah, it was very much putting me off. Very much putting me off. Especially a team like Raptors, who are known for obviously playing in red. I was looking at it like, that doesn't look right. It was a bit off-putting. Please change that for Game 5, guys, please.
Maybe it's a tactic. Maybe they're doing it to put the players off.
Yeah, mate, Jason Tatum missed some threes.
Yeah, he's just seeing the salmon out the corner of his eye, and he's just like, oh.
Also, quick shout out, this is the only game of the 4 where Kemba Walker and Marcus Smart haven't really gone off. I know, obviously, Marcus Smart going off isn't the same as, like, Kawhi. He's not going to get 45, but he's going to hit, like, 4 threes and get a couple of blocks. And him and Kemba, yeah, they both couldn't. They're both off tonight. Van Vliet chased them off quite a lot off the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And that is a key for Game 5, I think. I think you need Kemba Walker. Yeah, Karen.
The other Jaylen Brown, 22% field goal percentage.
Didn't shoot well at all, and didn't drive to the basket as much as you think as well. So whether that's just a one-off and they can watch the tape and adjust, but yeah, they can't leave it all on Jason Tatum, no matter how good he is. To be fair.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this Boston Celtics team. They've got people that they can all step up and all contribute, and it isn't left to one player. So when those guys aren't hitting shots, or it's not falling, or they try to start to lean on Tatum, that's when they fall apart slightly, I think. Like you said, like the last couple of minutes of the game, they go to Tice twice for a dunk last game, and it works. How many teams would go to a player like Daniel Tice the last couple of minutes of a game? You don't see that very often from other teams, especially in big moments. So,
especially with your point guard giving the ball up to make the right play, I think that just sums them up as an offense, doesn't it? They just make the right decision more often than not. And we've both seen games.
They'll be all right.
We both see 7 games still, don't we, as well? So it kind of helped our predictions.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. We look great now.
We do. We even look better with this next game, going on to this one. We have the Bucks versus the Heat, Ben. And the Heat have a 3-0 lead. And like I said before, no team has ever come back in the playoffs from a 3-0 deficit to win a playoff series, sorry.
Yeah.
We both were worried about the Bucks the whole way through. We were worried about the Bucks and the Clippers. Obviously, the Clippers have kind of proved us wrong at times, but the Bucks have really doubled down on how poor they've been offensively late in games. And in this last game, Ben, they had the worst fourth quarter in playoff history, and Jimmy Butler outscored the whole team, which is crazy.
It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Coach Bud stepping up with a 10-man rotation still in this game. I just don't understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. The Heat just want it more. They're playing better. They're playing better team basketball. Coach knows what they're doing. Franchise knows what they're doing. Everybody's on the same page, and that's the difference at the moment.
Yeah, so, that and Jimmy Butler, I think having that fourth quarter closer. Obviously, we all know every team's going to take Giannis over Jimmy if you had some fantasy 2K draft.
Yeah.
But with 6 minutes to go in a fourth quarter, the way the NBA is now, you've got someone who has to kind of Euro step or just drive to the basket on every single time down. Or you've got someone like Butler that drove past Giannis twice late on. He hit a three, which he shot a three, which he missed, but he can at least space the floor. He can get to the line quite well. One thing I've noticed as well, I don't know if you have, that Giannis is picking up so many fouls just by guys being like, right, we know he's not going to pull up. He's either going to kick it out or he's going to try and dunk on me. So if I just stand still, 20% of the time I'm going to get a charge, and that's what's happening. He's getting in foul trouble so often just by barreling into people in the lane. And he's had foul trouble in every game, but not as bad yesterday. But it was crazy to me that he didn't play 40 minutes. Like, he's 25 years of age and he's still not playing in 40 minutes when you're down 2-0. When are you ever going to play him for minutes?
It's down to, we've said it so many times before. It's two things for the Bucks. I think it's the coach not making the right calls here in terms of which players are playing what minutes, and I feel like it's also that Giannis hasn't got that killer superstar mindset, especially when it matters, which is the playoffs. You see it in the regular season a lot, but in the playoffs, I can't pick a game out where I've gone, yes, Giannis took over. I know he got 21 points, 16 rebounds, 9 assists last game, but he still shot 33%. He's just, I don't know.
It's late on as well, you've got to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, not from 7 from 3 as well. He needs to sort this 3-point shooting out, otherwise people, especially in the playoffs, they get a read on him. They know exactly what he's going to do. It's Euro step or drive and spin to the basket. And like you said, they figured him out. They stand there, they take charges, or they've got someone ready to make his shot very difficult.
Yeah, and if you've got players willing to stand there and take a charge for their team, I think that's crucial, isn't it? And we know the Heat have got loads and loads of good defensive players. They've also got loads of dogs as well that don't mind getting absolutely battered in the lane.
Yeah.
And people like Jay Crowder, I know he got injured, but Andre Iguodala, Jimmy Butler, even Goran Dragic, and Bam Adebayo, players like that, they're just going to take charges like for their team. Like, they don't care. They're all teams. So yeah, a bit of a worry for the Bucks. I think we both had 4-2 actually to the Heat, or maybe 4-3. I think one of us had. They're 3-0 up. I personally think the Bucks do win Game 4 just because I think the sweep's just too embarrassing. I think that Giannis will have a big game on at least one end. And Coach Bud has to shorten the rotation or increase the minutes, you'd think, to Middleton and Giannis by now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say they probably do still steal a game or so. But what are your thoughts? Do you think we're going to get a second round sweep for the 1 seed?
I feel like it might come, and if there's a sweep, I think they fire Coach Bud.
I agree. I think if they get swept, they're going to fire him, and Giannis will be getting his MVP trophy at home in his living room, which is going to be weird.
Yeah, and I don't know if the way they've been playing lately as well might. I know it shouldn't, but might impact the amount of votes he gets as well. I still think he'll win it.
Oh, well, they've already voted now, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they've already voted, so that's why everyone's laughing, being like, you need to get this award out ASAP because they're going home.
Going home.
Yeah, and just obviously a shout out for everyone. That game is at 8:30 today, actually, so it's a real positive tip-off time for UK viewers because we haven't had many this week. So that's 8:30 tonight for any Heat fans that want to get the brooms out.
Yeah, just a quick note on our playoff bracket. After the first playoff round, all the scores are in and added up, and we have 3 people in joint first.
Oh, cool.
Steve 901, Matt, Suns Fans UK, and somebody called Ben.
Oh, I know Matt as well. Matt mentioned he was going to apply, so he'll be buzzing that he's top because he wasn't very confident when I spoke to him.
Yeah, no, joint top. We're all up there, 3 of us, but it's 200 points then for the guys that are in. It says joint 4th because there's 3 of us in first, but it's all very tight.
No, well, good luck to everyone in the rest of your playoff matchups for that one then.
I think it's going to go downhill from here for me.
I was always going to lose because I think I put the Blazers and Mavs to advance, so just going with my heart.
Bold.
Cool. All right, well, we're going to leave it there. We've got an interview with Joe Holbert this week, who we were supposed to do last week, so we're going to speak to him on Tuesday or Wednesday. Me and Ben will probably come to you just as a duo again at the end of the week at some point when we thrash
Yes.
out schedules and stuff with being back to work. But yeah, another week of playoff basketball for you all to enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, good to speak to you all again. See you soon, Lee.
See you, mate.